오늘은 조금 일찍 시작을 했는데, 일단은 1시간 정도, 지금, 있는 어제까지, 어디까지 끝냈더라? 코र्스에서 지금, autonomy, 플러스, 지금, autonomy가 보면, 무슨 뜻이지? 지금 하나, 둘, 세 개 남고 파이널 exam 했으니까 아마 오늘까지 여기까지 끝낼 수 있을 것 같고, 그래서 오늘은 이거 끝내는 게 목표. 파이널 exam 전까지 이렇게 세 개 끝내고 이따 조금 있다가 책 내가 있던 거 어디 갔냐? 이쪽에 있나? 책 가져와서 30장 읽고, 그리고 오늘 하루는 마무리. autonomy like anatomy 같은 느낌인데 자치권, 자율성, autonomy. Okay.
We build systems using the principles of isolation to achieve what we call autonomy. And autonomy is basically the idea that each of our services that we build can operate independently. So why is that beneficial? Why do we want this autonomy in our services? Well, keep in mind that microservices can only guarantee their own behavior. They do that through their API. So each microservice presents an API to the world and it says, this is how I will behave. If you ask me this question, I will give you this answer. They can't guarantee what other services are going to do. They can't guarantee that those services are going to be running. They can't guarantee that they'll be responsive. They may be slow. They may have other issues. So they can only guarantee what they will do. This is just like people. I can guarantee how I'm going to behave. I can't guarantee how you're going to behave. I think it's very useful when we think about distributed systems to think about people, because people represent a natural distributed system. So microservices only guarantee their own behavior. Isolation allows those services to operate independent of one another. When services are very tightly coupled and they're not isolated, they can't operate independently. They rely on other people to do their work, and as a result, they become brittle. Again, if we think about that in terms of people,
brittle and became brittle. Brittle means very fragile, brittle. Again, if we think about
that in terms of people, if I can do all of my work completely independently, that's a very efficient process. On the other hand, if my work relies on 50 other people in order to get it done, it's probably going to happen very slowly, and it's probably going to be very difficult to coordinate all of that. Things are going to start to fall apart very quickly. What happens if somebody gets sick and can't do their part of the job? So making each service autonomous helps to solve that problem. How do we make services autonomous? Well, we need to make sure that they have enough information to resolve any conflicts and repair failures. What this does is it means that they don't require other services to be operational at all times. There's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can use things like asynchronous messaging. You can use various techniques for introducing isolation into your application. But generally speaking, the idea is you need to isolate those applications. You can use techniques like making copies of data, so that in the event that an external dependency goes down, the service can rely on a copy of the data rather than relying on the external service. So there's lots of things that can be done here. But again, the end goal is to make it so that each service can operate completely independently of every other service for at least a short period of time. Maybe not forever. At some point, they might need those other services to come back. But if they can operate at least for a short period of time in a fully autonomous way, that's very beneficial.
What are you doing?
So what are the benefits?
What? Okay.
Well, autonomy allows for stronger scalability and availability. If you think about it, fully autonomous services, these are services that literally have no external dependencies, can be scaled indefinitely. You can just keep creating copies of them. They have no dependencies, so there's nothing preventing you from scaling forever. Now, the reality is a fully autonomous system is a pretty rare, possibly non-existent thing. But the closer we can get to fully autonomous, the better situation we're going to put ourselves in. In addition, operating independently means that they can tolerate any amount of failure. If it's a fully autonomous system, then the entire world can fail around them and they will continue to operate. Again, that's probably an unachievable goal, but the closer we can get to it, the better. So that's kind of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get as close to fully autonomous as possible, recognizing that we're probably not going to get all the way there. So how do we do it? Well, communicating only through asynchronous messaging. Again, if the moment we introduce a synchronous message, now we've eliminated autonomy. We now depend on that response. And so communicating only through asynchronous messaging improves our autonomy. We need to maintain enough internal state for the service to function in isolation. This may mean making copies of data, for example. Those copies, incidentally, are going to be eventually consistent rather than immediately consistent or strictly consistent. That's important because it allows us to create these additional copies of the data so that in the event that an external dependency fails, we can fall back to that possibly slightly out-of-date information. If you think about this from, say, a banking perspective, if you go to your bank and you want to know the balance of your account, what would you really like to know? Do you want to know the balance of your account right at this second? Or would you like to know the balance of the account 10 minutes ago? If you need to know it right at this second, then that means that you can't really tolerate any failures. If you need to know it, say, 10 minutes ago, then that means theoretically the system that updates your balance could have failed 9 minutes ago, and you're still going to be okay. Now, if you're standing at the till at a store trying to buy something with your bank card, 10 minutes ago is probably sufficient for most use cases. You don't necessarily need up to the millisecond information at that point. So that's a way to help achieve autonomy. We also want to avoid any kind of direct synchronous dependencies on external services. Again, direct synchronous dependencies means that you can't do your job until you get back that response, which means you can't be autonomous. There's just no way you could do it. You now have a direct dependency on somebody else to do their job. So these are the types of things that we want to do, but at the end of the day, it's all about finding ways to isolate your microservices. The more isolation you can put in, the more autonomous your microservices are going to be. So again, as a same process, just put all the copies here and then put it back, put that to here as well, and then go back to the questions. And autonomy is a reactive system. In a reactive system means services can automatically restart to recover in their event in a problem. Services depend on each other in a way that is clear and predictable. Services understand the way that their dependencies can fail and will react accordingly. Services can operate independently from each other. Which of the following things can a microservice guarantee the behavior of their client services? Because that's the microservice, each services are independent. So one service or client itself cannot guarantee their services is working properly, and their own behavior through their API, the behavior of their dependencies, the types of failure they will experience,
The types of failure they will experience. This is it. The type of failure they will experience. In this case, the they could be the API. Their own behavior, a microservice guarantee the behavior of their client services. At least this one is not, and then this one is. This one does. This one is their own behavior through their API, the behavior of their dependencies. What does it mean by dependencies? If you think about it, full autonomous services, there are services that literally have no external dependencies. Can we they have no dependencies. So because it should not have the dependencies as a microservices, so the behavior of their dependencies cannot be the answer. The type of failures they will experience. So the failure they the they in here should be a microservice. So yes, the failure of mine should be responsible by myself. Which of the following things can a microservice guarantee? Uh, which of the following things can a microservice? We'll keep in mind that microservices can only guarantee their own behavior, their own behavior, their own behavior through the API, through their API. I don't understand it. Of their client services and the behavior of their own behavior through the API. They do that through their API. Which of the following things can okay, just one. The type of failure they will experience. What this thing means here? Isolation and dependency. True or false? Isolation increases dependencies. Isolation increases dependencies. False. fewer dependencies means more autonomy. Autonomy. True. Creating autonomy to make a service autonomous, we need to ensure it responds in a consistent fashion, regardless how much load it is under. No, it doesn't necessarily important because as far as it is fail by itself and then do not affect to the others, still it is autonomous even though it is fail. It depends. Its dependencies automatically recover in the event of a failure. No, I don't. I don't care about that. It is replicated to enough place so that we can tolerate a failure. It has enough information to repair failures or resolve conflicts. It responds in a consistent fashion regardless of how much load it is under. Uh, I think this is the answer. Consistent fashion. No, it has enough information to repair failure or resolve conflict. To make a service autonomous, we need to ensure it replicated to enough places so that we can tolerate a failure. Its dependencies automatically recover. Can be scaled indefinitely. Indefinitely. You can just keep creating copy of them. They have no dependency. So, to make a service autonomous, we need to ensure it responds in a consistent fashion. I knew this is not an answer. Its dependencies automatically recover in the event of the failure. Well, we need to make sure that they have enough information to resolve any conflicts and repair failures or repair failures, resolve the conflicts. What? We need to make sure that they we need to autonomous. How do we make service autonomous? Well, we need to make sure that they have enough information to resolve any conflicts and repair failures. What this does is it means that they don't require other services to be operation at all times. There's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can use things like asynchronous messaging. You can use various techniques for introducing isolation into your application. Um, when a dependency exists on data from an external service, we can add autonomy by creating multi-copies of external service so that we don't have to worry about it failing. Retrying is not the answer. We don't want to retry many things. Reading from the services, reading from services, um, services databases directly if the service is unable, creating a local copy of the data from that service, creating multiple copies of the external service so that we don't have to worry about it failing. When a dependency exists on data from an external existing on data from an external service and it exists on data from an external service, we can add autonomy by, I think, creating a local copy of the data from that service. You can use techniques like making copies of data so that in the event that an external dependency goes down, the service can rely on a copy of the data rather than relying on the external service. Create a local copy of the data from the service. Infinite scalability true or false. A full autonomous system could be scaled indefinitely, assuming enough resources were available. True, because we can just copy and paste. Okay, true or false. A fully autonomous service can continue to operate even if it is the only part of the system still running. So I can I cannot 100% guarantee about the answer, but think about that. Because it's an autonomous system, which means it doesn't know about the other services. It only guarantee that it is working. Um, so for his point and for its point of view, the other part of that specific uh, microservice is not his concern. So he can only guarantee that, which means if only one is who remain in pull through the service, still it should work because it doesn't know about any other systems. So it should be true. Synchronous messages and autonomy. Synchronous messages. Uh, Synchronous messages enable autonomy by reducing back and forth traffic. Enable autonomy by ensuring consistency. Uh, Prevent autonomy by requiring knowledge of where the receiver is deployed. Synchronous message prevent autonomy by introducing dependencies. First of all, this one shouldn't be the answer because um, it's not preventing. Enable autonomy by ensuring consistency. Enable autonomy by reducing back and forth traffic. So adding the back and forth traffic and then actually introducing dependencies and prevent autonomy by requiring knowledge of where the receiver is deployed. So to make it synchronous, this one could be the possible answer. Enable autonomy by ensuring consistency. No. 10 minutes ago is probably sufficient for most use cases. You don't necessarily need up to the millisecond information at that point. So that's a way to help uh, achieve autonomy. We also want to avoid any kind of direct synchronous dependencies on external services. Again, indirect synchronous dependencies means that you can't do your job until you get back to response, which means you can't be autonomous. There's just no way you can do it. You now have a direct dependency on somebody else to do their job. So there are the types of things that we want to do, but at the end of the day, it'll all about finding ways to isolate your microservices. The more isolation you can put in, the more autonomous your microservices are going to be. End of transcription. Wait a second. Message. So, um, So how do we do it all? Or what about all what? Again, that's probably an archivable goal that the closer we can get to it's better. It the better. So that is kind of what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to get as close to fully autonomous as possible, recognizing that we are probably not going to get all the way there. So how do we do it well? Communicating only through asynchronous messaging. Again, if the moment we introduce a synchronous messaging, now we've eliminated autonomy, we now depend on that response. Communication only through asynchronous messaging improves our autonomy. Synchronous message enable autonomy by reducing back and forth traffic, enable autonomy by ensuring consistency. So when saying consistency means it works same for every time, but because synchronous message um, makes something rely on to something else, that means if if that has a different status, I will get affected by that. Prevent autonomy by requiring knowledge of where the receiver is deployed. So only what I can guess is that this one prevent autonomy. Uh, oh, prevent autonomy by introducing dependencies. Introducing dependencies. Oh, my English sucks. Prevent autonomy by introducing dependencies. Okay. Mm-hmm. I will go up. Okay. Yeah, yeah, go up. I will be there. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.